On super spreader events, I don't know if you've seen this research just up this morning. It looks like the Biogen conference led to 20,000 cases, and it's really an explosion of coronavirus. What does that tell you about the guidance and how we should proceed forward?
Well, we've said for a while now that our biggest concern at this point is unmasked, undistanced, sort of managed events. And the reason we said that is because our own contact tracing activity has shown that big elements of the rise in cases that we've seen in some of the communities that we would call sort of high risk have not been as a result of people coming to a place like this, okay? Because generally speaking, the people who work here are wearing masks and distancing. The customers aren't allowed in the stores if they don't wear masks and distance. I mean, as the Lieutenant Governor would say, it's an organized activity. The big challenge for us is to bring that kind of discipline to other kinds of events where people clearly haven't been distancing, haven't been wearing masks, and a lot of these involve what I would describe as events in which people are familiar with one another and they behave like they're familiar with one another. And the simple truth of the matter is, as difficult as it is for all of us, you know, the hugging, the high-fiving, the singing along to the songs, whatever it might be, indoors or outdoors, particularly in close-quarter environments, is just the wrong thing to be doing when you're trying to work your way through a pandemic and to maintain the ability to continue to make it possible for people to work and to earn a living and pay their rent, pay their mortgage, and pay their employees. And so my primary message is exactly as it's always been, which is wear masks if you're going to be outside, social distance, recognize and appreciate that the virus isn't going anywhere, and even if our numbers are low, which they are, there are certain parts of Massachusetts where we still have a lot of work to do, and we do have some big events happening with respect to colleges coming back and a variety of approaches to school reopening happening.
Were you shocked by that number of 20,000?
You know, I was criticized, actually, for saying a few months ago that the Biogen event was a seminal event with respect to Corona here in the Commonwealth, and I couldn't put a number on it at that point in time. But when I thought about the number of people who attended the conference, the number of people who eventually tested positive who attended the conference, and the lack of, and this is no offense to anybody, but at that point in time, nobody was wearing a mask, nobody was socially distancing, nobody was even behaving with concern about the presence of the virus at all. I mean, all the rules of the game with respect to that have changed. But I do think it speaks to the power of that virus to move from one person to another, to another, to another, to another, if people don't wear masks, don't social distance, don't take seriously the fact that the fundamental strength of COVID-19 is its ability to get from one person to the next quickly. And with regard to that, I think, if anything, this study, I guess, hasn't been published yet, so I haven't read it, but it certainly would speak on a grander scale to some of the stuff we've seen on a smaller scale. Let's take that wedding in Maine. I think there were 62 people at the wedding, 56 of them tested positive. The age spread was 4 to 75. There was a wedding that we figured out through our contact tracing program that took place in Rhode Island, where a number of people from Massachusetts went to it. Everybody who went to that wedding except one person tested positive for COVID. There are reasons why we focus so hard on face coverings and distancing and hand washing and, you know, wiping surfaces, because these are the things that we all have the power and the control over to do to limit the spread of the virus, and we should continue to do them.